So allow me to introduce myself first. First of all, I'm Felix Alvarado, and I'm the director of Straight A Academy, and co-director, my wife Judy, is over here, and we want to thank you again for coming out today. This is really, one of the biggest issues as a parent that we have to face is getting our kids off to college. In today's competitive environment, finding the right college and getting them into the college and paying for the college, the whole 9 yards is a really big deal. And I don't have to tell you about all the stories that have made it into the news about the cost of college going through the roof. And, so naturally there's a lot of interest in, is there any inside information that we can get that can help us through this process? And I think today you're going to find that our presenter, our chief presenter, as well as Judy and I have some inside information that I think will be beneficial, and I hope that you guys will be able to put it to use. So without any further ado, allow me to introduce our primary speaker from College Advantage, David Donahue. David, you want to come up and take over? I'll turn this off.
The Straight A Academy, College Advantage, College Admissions, 15 Fallacies, How to Get to Yes. Yes is a very important word in the college admission game, I can tell you. First of all, I kind of wanted to welcome you, because whenever you have an event like this, you're always saying, wow, what if I had a party and nobody showed up? And so happy to see you in the seats, and we're not talking to the stand-ups or anything else, and we are filming this and hoping to pass it on to other people at some time. Also, I want to applaud you for seeking knowledge about this whole subject, because I can tell you with all assurance that knowledge is really the answer. It's the secret to success in this particular endeavor. Also, I want to say happy St. Patrick's Day. It's not often on St. Patrick's Day that you get an Irishman, David Donahue, to present with a wearing the green, so and I think also it's sort of subliminally we're all looking for spring, Before I start, what years are your, I thought I'd see more students, but your students in school, how many juniors?
Rising juniors or present juniors?
Present juniors. How many sophomores? How many earlier than sophomores? Okay. I kind of assumed there weren't any seniors because the horse is sort of out of the barn, as they used to say in northern Vermont. It's interesting. I was looking into this whole situation and researching it and so forth, and I was reading a book the other day, and one of the reasons why knowledge is so important is that you're in the process of investigating and ultimately buying a very complicated product. And I want to share a quote with you, and the gentleman that made the quote is Colin S. Diver, and he's the president of Reed College in Portland. And I just finished reading the Steve Jobs book, and he happened to go to Reed College. Didn't graduate from Reed College like all the great inventors in America, but I'm sure that you aspire that your son or daughter will actually go somewhere like that and get a diploma. He says, choosing which college or university to attend is a very big and involved decision. Think of choosing a college as the equivalent of buying a very complicated product. The product is a package of services including classes, courses, academic advising, tutoring, athletic programs, entertainment, social experiences, accommodations, and food. This complex package provides not only 4 years' worth of experiences, but also a gateway to future graduate schools or jobs, a lifetime network of friends and connections, and a lasting professional and personal credential. Wow. That's a pretty complex set of services to investigate and to decide. And the other thing that complicates is there's 3,500 four-year colleges in the United States, so there's an amazing amount of choice beyond the complexity of that product. I think about when I went through it, the kind of things that are stressors in the whole process, and I think the first one for the parents is just the fact that we all want the best for our kids. I mean, I know when I went through it, my daughter Olivia, I was saying to myself, geez, did I look at the right schools? And those of you that know me, I looked at every school, so I fixed that. I just went to all of them, but it was like a vortex I couldn't get out of. But ask my daughter if you ever see her. Anyway, so I'm thinking, you know, did I go to the right schools? Have I asked the right questions? Have I equipped her with the right knowledge to make a good decision? Does she really want to study what she says she wants to study? Is the curriculum right? Does it feel right? Is my wife happy? You know, a whole series of things like that. And then from the student side, I think the stressor is, you know, if your kids are juniors, they're looking ahead next year and saying, okay, well, I'm still going to be living at home in Bedford, in the, you know, wonderful, secure land of Bedford. I'm going to be at the same school probably. I'm going to have the same set of friends. Probably know what I'm going to be taking for classes. I may even know the teachers. And, you know, this is all pretty familiar. But by the time they get to the middle of the senior year, they're going to be thinking about the fact that, okay, I'm living in suburbia now. I may be going to college in a city. I'm going to be living in a dorm, away from home. I'm going to have to make a whole new series of friends. Not really sure what I'm going to be studying. I don't know any of the teachers. And the other thing will be, gee, can I really do the work? So I think with students, it's the fear of the unknown that you won't feel it for a while, but when you get to senior year, you'll start to feel it. The other stressor is the fact that this whole process involves teenagers. And as we all know, you very well, teenagers tend to have strong opinions about things, and they may not quite match up with your opinions. And I mean, that's a good thing. You know, they're coming of age. They have their own opinions. They make their own judgments and so forth, but that can be a cause of stress. And finally, you know, let's just talk about the big elephant in the room. There's so much money involved. There's so much money involved that, I mean, I hope that all of your kids will get lots of merit aid, and you'll get, you know, lots of financial aid, you know, if you have multiple kids in college and so on and so forth. But irrespective of how that works out, this is going to be one of the biggest investments that you're going to make other than purchasing your home. And if you have multiple kids that you have to educate, it's a tremendous, tremendous challenge. So that's a stressor as well. Felix, shall we? Oh, just one thing about the protocol so we can move this along. What we want to do is we want to go through these 15 fallacies. And when I say fallacies, what we're really trying to do is illuminate what we believe to be true. We, meaning Felix and Judy and I. And the purpose of that really is to try to give you a baseline understanding of how this whole thing works. And I thought it would be a good idea to say how, you know, how we think it doesn't work, and then go from there. If you have any questions, we'll just go through the 15. If you have any questions, jot them down, keep them in mind. We'll answer the questions once we go through. If I can't answer the question, I'll research it for you, take your phone number, get back to you, and I think that's for you as well. If you have a question that you don't think is appropriate for the group at large, you know, I'll be in the back afterwards and be happy to use that same protocol. So, Felix. My father always told me, if a speech is worth giving, it should be memorized, word for word. I've got to sheet everything because I'm not trying to impress you with my oratory capabilities. I'm trying to be sure I don't forget anything that's important to you. So bear with me as with the papers. Colleges are altruistic, nonprofit organizations that operate solely in the best interests of their students. Well, not exactly. I mean, colleges are huge marketing organizations. They have thousands of employees and budgets in the hundreds of millions of dollars, the big ones. So what they really do is what any big organization does, is they try to market their strengths and kind of gloss over the things they don't do as well. They spend all kinds of money with focus groups and agencies and so forth to present themselves and find out what it is important to you and your student, and present it to you in the best way. So what's really, really key is to determine what is really important to your student and match it up to the strengths of the university. But what I'm really saying is you are being sold. It took me, you go to one of the elite universities and you're kind of, oh boy, Brown, hoo-hoo, everybody, everything's all buttoned up and hoo-hoo. They're still selling, when you go to the intro session, I mean, they're selling the school to you. And it helped me I'm kind of a slow learner, but about 15th school or so, I sort of said, wow, yeah, they're kind of selling this thing to me. And it shifted it made me start feeling like a customer instead of a parent or something, which I think can be important. So what I'm saying in this slide is be a savvy consumer and kind of sort through what's being said to you. And I can use like a car buying analogy, maybe to help just illustrate it. If you're going to buy a car, you'd set up your criteria. Maybe you want four-wheel drive because it snows in Bedford, although it didn't snow this year. I mean, we all know it's. Maybe you have 3 children, so you want 3 seats. And so that's kind of your criteria. And if you were researching that, you'd go to the GM BMW website, look through all the specs of the car. You might talk to friends of yours that have the same car. You might consult Consumer Reports. You probably go to the website for multiple dealerships, and then ultimately you go to the dealership and you'd find out what the car cost, what's the financing arrangement, what's the warranty, how good are they on service, what's the cost of the car, do I want to lease the car, And then eventually you'd probably go, maybe with your spouse, you might drive it multiple times. So I'm just suggesting that when you're looking into a college, you really have to put some energy into looking at all these different attributes, just like if you were making a big capital purchase like a car. And it's really interesting at a college, and this is a little off this particular topic, but it's interesting about the various constituencies at a college and how they impact what their admission policies are. I mean, for instance, the faculty. What would you think the faculty would be interested in terms of a criteria for the admission of students? Anybody have any ideas?
Great point.
Yeah, they want the smartest kid. I mean, they just, hey, get me the smartest, most academically efficient kids that you can. And then you have finance and administration, which they're trying to hit their average net financial yield per student so they can operate the university. And then admissions. I mean, admissions is following the kind of amalgamated policies of the university, but they're all about sort of admissions and diversity. Okay, we got to have 1/3 of the kids have to be minorities, and the big thing now is that many of the elite universities, 8 to 10% of the students are international. That's all happened in like the last 10 years, which has made college admissions a lot more competitive. Suddenly you've got, because the siren song, universities in the United States do not give financial aid to foreign students. So the siren song of a full, 8 to 10% of full-paying customers, I keep going back to customers because that's what I feel like when I write those checks. But full-paying customers is really something. So between the minority, they say it's not a quota, but it doesn't change year to year. I mean, call it semantics.
Is it okay to ask?
Yeah, just if it's quick, because you could get into long discussions about
You talked about customer and
Yeah.
full-paying customers
Yeah.
and full-paying
Yeah.
customers. Do they know up front when you apply what you're going to be paying and given?
Most of the schools are what they call need blind. So the admissions department has no idea whether you can pay any of the tuition, which is really the way it should be. So it should not, in most universities, impact whether or not you get admitted, which is, in my mind, a very, very good thing. And then you have development at a university. Now, everybody here knows what development is. They're the guys and gals that send you the letters afterwards and say, wouldn't you like to contribute? But as it applies to admissions, they have a very specific role, and that is they want the legacies admitted. Because you and perhaps your brother and maybe your parents went to the school and you've been sending them money for quite some time, and they don't want to see that dry up. So that's what they're after. And the last one is athletics, which is a really easy one. Lower the criteria so we can get the star quarterback in so we can win some football games. And that's about. All right, Felix. I can get any information I need on the college website. Well, you can get a lot of information on the college websites. They're very robust. There's all kinds of information about the schools, the courses, how you apply, all the clubs.
Except for the tuition and fees.
Yeah, that's at the back. You have to search for that a little bit, you know, in the shock value. But I'm telling you something probably intrinsically you know anyway. The only way to evaluate a school is to go there with your student, talk to other students, just kind of hang around and see what it feels like, talk to staff, talk to professors, talk to everybody you can, go to the dining hall, sit in a class, and so forth. And it's really, really interesting. And if you've been taking your kids to schools already, it's funny, students seem to have an innate sense on whether or not they're comfortable at a school in like 20 minutes to half an hour. I didn't have that kind of antenna. I don't know, they just, it amazes me. I took my daughter to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. She's into art, and I said, oh, I got to take her to RISD. I really don't want to, because she wants to study design and art, but I want her to go to a university. I don't want her to go to an art school, but I said, I got to take her. You know, going to every other school, and I want to make them feel bad. So I take her there, and she's falling asleep in the initial session. I mean, she's real. I'm like, you just never know. She says, no, it's all about art, and I want to, you know, which was a wonderful conclusion for me. So anyway, there's a hierarchy. How many people have been to look at schools already and been to the intro sessions? Most everybody. I'll go over this kind of quickly, but there's a hierarchy of information. You go to the intro session, and that's pretty much telling you what's on the website. And the people that present there are, they call them admissions representatives, but I call them sales and marketing people. Back to my paradigm. So I mean, they're quite talented, and they're good on their feet, and they give you all the information. And if you ask a question there, you get an institutional answer. I mean, because they're all scripted. I mean, they give you an answer, then that's the party line, there's nothing wrong with that. Then you go on the tour, which is the undergraduate student that has been taught to walk backwards or not. But they have a kind of a script, but it's only about telling you the history of the school, and this is this building, and this is where this department is, and you know, it's all, I mean, you want to look around, and it's nice. They're usually quite personable, and that's all good, but you can ask them some questions. You know, if you ask the tour guide, in your experience, is the school sort of, are the students collaborative or competitive? They usually get, I mean, once you get off the script, they give you pretty candid answers. Another one might be, okay, you're studying business and your major is finance. How hard is it to get a course in these other departments? They usually tell you. I mean, can you study in the dorm at night, or is it too noisy? They tell you. And how's the food at XYZ? And they tell you. So you can find out some things. The next hierarchy is the interview. And I love these schools. A lot of them say, on the website, you go, if you want to schedule an informational interview, oh, good. That would be nice. So the impression you get is, you know, I jot down my 5 questions, and I go in and ask them, and I get my answers, and thank you very much. You know, it's very nice. Well, in reality, when 2 people sit down for an exchange of information, they're going to be asking some questions to your student. I mean, they may ask them easy questions like, what do you like most about your current school? That's easy. What don't you like? Although, what do you like? That's fine. What do you don't like? You know, don't not like too much, you know. Don't tell them not to list 10 things that they hate, because nobody likes a complainer, you know, so you want to be a little careful about that. And they may ask you an easy question like, oh, why are you interested in Georgetown? I'm going to use Georgetown today as the muse. Georgetown. Why are you interested in Georgetown? That's pretty easy. But beware the knockout question. The knockout question is, what do you think you could contribute to Georgetown University? That one's not so easy to answer. So my point is, and Mike won't mind if you don't mind if I use what you told me last week. He's my neighbor.
Did I tell you something?
Yeah, you told me something, and I'm so. You nodded, that's permission. He takes his son, Mike, to Cornell and, I'll get this mostly right, Cornell and Syracuse. So he's going to see the Whitman School of Business, top 20 business school at Syracuse, and he's in the parking garage. Yeah. Don't correct me if I'm getting this wrong. Don't screw me up here. Eh? You weren't supposed to come, you know. I was going to make up a bigger story, but you know, you're here. Yeah. Okay. So, and you must have looked like you were lost because this woman comes up to him and says, sort of, can I help you? And he said, well, I'm going over to the Whitman School of Business, and she turns out to be the head recruiter for the Whitman School of Business. She said, come on with me and I'll take you over there. So she goes over there and she gets to her office, and I'm getting this half right at least. Gets to her office and she calls up the dean of the Whitman School, and he comes down. So then they get like a, you called it a cook's tour, you know, fabulous tour, wonderful thing. But then you sit down in the dean's office and the dean starts asking questions. So when you, my point is when you go, you really need to, and Mike was saying to me, oh man, I was sweating because we hadn't gone over the talking points, you know, and Mike did well, but we hadn't really gotten ready for this. And this is all going in your file. Same thing happened to me. I took my daughter to Carnegie Mellon, Pittsburgh. Now that's a nice little drive, I'll tell you. Ever been across Pennsylvania? It's like an eternity. Drive to Pittsburgh, 10 hours. So, you know, we go on the intro thing, but I also booked an appointment in the design department because I said, I'm not coming back, you know, I want to see it all. So I get to the design department and this nice teaching assistant takes us all around. We see everything in design, but wonderful. Then she takes us back down to the dean's office. Same thing. I hadn't taught, you know, we hadn't rehearsed the 15 or 20 questions. The dean starts asking the questions. Yeah, she did pretty well, but suddenly you didn't think you were going to get an interview, and so I'm just saying, beware of the. When you go on the problem, it's a wonderful thing that you run into the dean of the Whitman School of Business. That's the upside, and until you can't come out with an answer for, you know, for a question. So just beware of that. There's also, you know, department interviews and so forth, but I'll touch on that later. I just said one other thing that I wanted to share with you about visiting a school, and it was, I actually put it in mind because I thought it was something your students should hear, but you'll have to transmit it to them. I found this on one of the real top prep school sites, and it says etiquette during and after your visit, college visit. It says, when visiting a school, remember that you are representing both yourself and your school. In other words, act naturally, but remember that what you do or say may ultimately impact your standing in the admissions office. You will never understand all the complexities of each school's admission policies, so assume that everyone you meet is in some way connected to the admissions process and treat them with due respect. This means dressing appropriately for your visit and conducting yourself in a positive manner, from your initial handshake to your undivided attention to your parting thanks and gracious goodbye. Remember, you have requested to spend time with their staff, so make the most of the opportunity. After your visit, it is always a good idea to send a thank you note to the person with whom you interviewed. While this note may wind up in your admissions file at some point along the way, the best reason for doing so reverts to basic rules of courtesy. I just think etiquette in the U.S., I mean, it's gone out the window, and it's really important in college admissions. Especially with the ease of email, a brief note is an effortless way to show your appreciation for someone having spent time with you. Every piece of communication counts. Whenever you contact the admissions office at schools to which you are applying, assume that your phone call, email, letter, and fax is recorded and added to your file. Make it concise, polished, and something that accurately conveys your character and persona. You're building your brand. Everything has to support that. Enough is enough. Remember to keep your correspondence with a college at an appropriate level. Do not barrage an admissions office with daily letters, phone calls, or emails, or your name will be uttered with dread. Do make sure that your correspondence is meaningful, memorable, and well presented. And dress is a big thing. I go to these college tours, and there's lots of times to be casual. I got nothing against casual, but you see kids in, you know, flip-flops and torn jeans and sweatpants, and this is your brand. You know, dress, look neat, dress appropriately, you'll stand out. It's an easy way to differentiate. Next one, Felix. College rankings. You know, that U.S. News and World Report. Oh, man. That looks like the Bible. It's a scary thing. But I want to really emphasize that the selection of a college should be based on your personal criteria, needs, interests, personality, and financial objectives, not the rankings. What you're looking for is just a good fit. But unfortunately, I have to issue a caveat to that because behind those rankings are a series of quality attributes that are important to you. There's a reason why those schools are ranked where they are. I mean, there are things like student-faculty ratio, you know, which is meaningful in terms of how much attention you get. Student retention. Do you know what student retention is? That's the number of kids that show up for the freshman year that come back for the sophomore year. If you see a school that has a student retention rate of 82%, that's not a school you want to be at. They're not doing a good job for customers. They're not serving the needs of customers. You don't want to be at that school. 4-year graduation rates. Very important. Not a big deal until it's year 5 and you're going to write a check for $10,000 to $50,000. I mean, this whole retention thing too is, it's like a customer in business, a customer service index. They're not satisfying the customers. If they're not getting kids through in 4 years, then the advisory services are not what they should be. I mean, sometimes there's a reason why someone's ill, but if they're doing a good job, they have very high rates of graduation in 4 years. You know, you may have other siblings you have to educate, and believe it or not, whether kids realize it or not, you do aspire at some time to get them off the payroll. To get a job. Go on to graduate school. You know, they may not realize that. So don't get too caught up on the rankings, but some of these things can be really, really important. Also, financial aid. That's another important one. Some schools satisfy 100% of the differential between cost and your EFC, effective family contribution. Some of them only satisfy 30, 40%. You know where you want to be if you if you need the money. Okay.
I would like to point out that the University of Michigan was ranked 14th in the world by the U.S. News and World Report.
There you go.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
You didn't happen to go there, did you?
Ohio State's good too.
Buckeyes are
Great grades and high SATs, that's all you need to get into a modestly selective or selective college. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, you know, you just got those great grades in high school and did well on the standardized test and you just mailed it in, and it's like a big Doris Day movie, you know, everything was wonderful. But in this day and age, in the selective schools, high grades and good SATs, that just puts you in the game. That doesn't get you in. And I'll illustrate that with an example a little further into this. Because you really need to have your essay, your activity agenda, your recommendations, those touches with your interview be exceptional. That's your brand. The rest of it is statistical information that just gets you in consideration. You must have A, but without B, you're not going to get into a selective school. And it's really important to differentiate yourself and what I call be memorable. You must be memorable. And how are you memorable? And I go back to kind of my time in the business world, positioning and branding. And I define that as the niche you occupy in someone's mind based on your interests and your strengths. And also, in the world I'm in, it's called a hook. And I define that as your talents, experiences, or accomplishments that make you memorable. You must be memorable. You know, if you're applying to schools that accept 60, 70, 80% of the applicants, this branding is not, if you have good grades and good SATs, you probably could get admitted, but I'm suggesting to you that this branding and what you do in your secondary school career it's not a means to an end. Oh, I'm going to do all these extracurricular things so I can get myself into college. I mean, it's about who your kids are. It's about how they develop their talents. It's about whether or not they contribute to their school. It's about whether or not they contribute to their town or their state. It's all about what they're going to become. And I think we all aspire to develop children that well, what's that old saying? I think it was the Army, you know, it was be the soldier you could be, or whatever. Be the person you can be. So I think everyone should sit down at the beginning of secondary school or sophomore year or wherever you are and say, what are you really interested in? What are you going to do that's going to make you stand out? What are you going to do to develop your talents, your personality, your commitment to things, the things you understand? And it means that you have to take your student and probably take them kind of out of their comfort zone. But they'll get used to that, you know, and being involved is very rewarding, you know. Well, irrespective of what isn't. And I realize that not every student's going to be the best debater in New Hampshire. Not every student's going to be a wonderful artist, the best musician around. Not everyone's going to lead the whole volunteer effort at their school. And it's really important, too, that what the colleges are looking for is they're not looking for someone that says, oh, I'm in the Key, is it the Key Club at Bedford? Well, it's the volunteer club, CBY. They're not looking for somebody that, this is kind of a silly example, but there's beach erosion down in Hampton. They're not looking for someone that's going to go down to Hampton and shovel for 100 hours. I mean, that's nice, but they're looking for someone who is going to get their students together, their friends, and they're going to present the problem, and they're going to recruit 25 kids, organize the whole thing, go down to Hampton and get them all to shovel for 25 hours, then have a fundraiser and hire a bulldozer. It's about leadership, it's about impact, it's about making a difference. That's what they're looking for, people that are going to stir things up and they're going to have an impact, a positive impact on the university. That's what they're looking for. And I love to ask the question when I'm at a school, what kind of a student are you looking for? Well, part of the reason I like to ask it is my warped sense of humor. They can't decide whether that's the dumbest question they've ever heard or the smartest. But the answer is sometimes very enlightening. Then don't say anything. Just wait, kind of, while they see what they say, you know. I give you two examples. The other thing you need to do is you need to mirror sometimes the needs or important things that a college tells you they're looking for. Like I was working with a girl and looking at schools and so forth, and I was looking at Providence College, nice little college down in Rhode Island. I don't know, it's 3,000-4,000 undergraduates, and so I'm on the website and I'm looking around trying to get information, and I see this thing that says admitted student profile. Well, that'd be interesting. I click on that, and it says you know, GPA 3.6, and then it says I'm talking about leadership and so forth, and then they list the percentage of people in the school that have these attributes, and it was National Honor Society, it was captain of a sports team, and one of the editors of the yearbook. So this girl was captain of the lacrosse team, lead editor of the yearbook, just happened, and she was also in National Honor Society. So I put together her activity resume, which is, I don't know, does everybody know what that is? I mean, most people don't do one. I always do one. And that is a compilation of every single thing that your student does outside the classroom. I mean, it's, you know, they're in the National Honor Society, sports, the volunteer things that they do, the work they do in the summer, if they took courses in the summer. It's every single thing that makes up your brand other than your GPA. So with this girl, I put those attributes right at the top. I mean, it's marketing 101. Find out what they're looking for and just give it to them. I mean, she's in, right? Early action, she's in. So if information is power. I mean, you've got to try to figure out it. And if you're applying to 12 schools or something, I know it's really hard to do this on every one, but the backup schools, you're probably not going to go to this link. It's the focus schools that you're really after, that any information you can get can help you. Another example, young lady that I didn't work with her, but she was going to a really elite prep school. And this girl was a brilliant math and science student, brilliant. On her math SATs, she got one question wrong. She knew the answer, but she ran out of time. 790 something, whatever, on her SATs. Almost the same score on the verbal, too. Brilliant. The curriculum at that prep school was the math curriculum of a small university. She's taken all the courses, all A's. So anyway, she's applying to 4 Ivy League schools. She's applying to MIT. She was applying to Tufts, Holy Cross, Duke, Georgetown. But she wasn't applying to Harvard. But in December, for some reason, she decides to go down to Harvard. She's interested in mechanical engineering. She gets to the mechanical engineering department, and she's talking with a professor, and he's saying, well, what schools are you interested in? She said, well, MIT is really my, because of math and science. And he's saying, wow, we're really beefing up our mechanical engineering department because we want to compete, and we're really looking for some girls that want to study mechanical engineering. When you find that out, that's like discovering oil in your backyard. I mean, it's like, I mean, when it happens to you, it's not going to be on a silver tray with a box like that with a bow on it. You're going to be in the business department, and you're going to be talking to the professor, and you're going to say, you're going to be talking, and your son wants to study finance, and the professor is going to say to you, oh yeah, we're going to have more finance courses next year because we hired Stephen Wade from Chicago and somebody else. And well, in a business school, they don't bring in, what's a full professor, $250,000, $300,000 with benefits and a well-known professor. They don't bring in people like that and spend money like that without commensurate revenue. Now, they're not going to increase the overall fees, probably, and they can't charge more for the business school. So what are they going to do? More seats. So if your son is thinking about majoring in marketing, you'd be better off to apply in finance that year. When you get there, change to marketing. A little bit of information can go a long ways. Oh, those standardized tests, that's pressure. That's pressure. Standardized tests, just IQ tests, and you just can't study for them. They are what they are. That is really proven to be a fallacy. And as we know, with the selective schools, the standardized tests are a very significant criteria. Another thing, you really want to get some merit aid. And high grades and high SATs trigger a merit aid. Merit aid can be anywhere from $4,000 to $20,000 a year if you can get high SATs. So it's a very important thing. If you have an SAT problem, this www.fairtest.org will list the 3,500 four-year schools. There are 600 to 800 of them that are either test optional in the admission criteria, or they just don't use SAT scores. So there are ways out, but there is no question that drilling the sample tests, understanding how the questions are asked and what the instructions are, so you're not in the test trying to figure out what they're asking you to do. The SATs, for instance, if you can't narrow down the choice of answers, you're better off not to guess because they penalize you a quarter point for every guess. Whereas the ACT, there's no penalty for a wrong answer, so you never want to leave a question blank. I mean, it's things like that. And drilling on similar material, vocabulary, especially similar math questions, can be very, very meaningful. And Felix and Judy are really nice people, and they're very capable educators, but I'm happy to be aligned with them because they get tremendous results, and it just makes my job a lot easier. I don't know if you have anything else you want to mention on that.
No, just absolutely. You see it all the time. You see kids. And by the way, if your son or daughter gets accepted to a school, and we've had this happen where students I've worked with got accepted but did not hit the minimum level of SAT score for merit scholarship. So she did her training with Straight Academy, which is our specialty, and afterwards her score was 2. She boosted her score 260 points. So we're proud to boast the fact that you know, that we become the #1 SAT prep coach in New England because 2/3 of our students boost their scores on real SAT over real SAT. Not practice test, I mean actual SAT by over 200 points. And that's a ginormous jump. So she's already accepted to Northeastern, boosted her score 260 points, and then they said, okay, you now get $68,000 in scholarship. And you know what I'm saying? She was already in. So you don't have to just say, oh, I'm all set. You know, and most of the schools, just to, and I'll let you go back, is most of the schools like to point out there's this benchmark. 1,800 is roughly a 600 math, 600 verbal, and 600 writing is kind of a benchmark. It's not a magical number, but it's a benchmark. And if you can hit 600 in all of those, most colleges, you know, he was talking about statistics, David was mentioning, they like to boast 85% of our incoming freshman class have an 1,800 or better. So it's kind of a benchmark. It's not a magical number. They take some with lower, but if you can hit that 1,800 or better, then you start looking at, you know, every college is different. You know, some you need to get into the 2,000 range before you hit the merit scholarship. But yeah, it's definitely a very big part of the overall picture and the money aspect to it.
Judy?
Hello, everyone. Is it on, Brian?
There we go. Are we all set?
Trying to record this in posterity.
So, can you hear me now? Okay. Well, I want to talk today about the myth of the well-rounded student. Back in 1964, which betrays my age when I was born, I don't believe that my parents for 1 minute were thinking ahead to college someday, and that was the motivator for why they enrolled me in all of the lessons that they did and had me have all the experiences I did. But you've probably almost never met anyone, myself and my 4 siblings, who took every conceivable lesson you've ever heard of in our lifetime so that would be well-rounded. We took things we didn't want to take because my parents felt that we should. And I was even enrolled in charm school. I don't know if you can tell or not, but they say that I'm a charming person. I don't know what to attribute that to, but that's a true story. But anyway, I think charm school should come back, actually, to boost the etiquette nowadays. But anyway, this fallacy that I'm talking about, we do as parents sometimes fall into the trap of believing that our students will get accepted into college if they're well-rounded, if they can go in and say that they do a million different things. Joseph Bottomley, the Associate Director of College Counseling at Pennsylvania's Cassidy School, is reported to have said, "The reality is that college admissions officers are looking for well-rounded classes. I tell my students that rejection letters often have little to do with your actual high school performance. Instead, it has more to do with the college's freshman class profile as a whole. Imagine a huge table. Colleges want to fill that table with a diverse group of people. Sometimes this will work to your advantage. Many colleges in the Northeast, for example, still think Oklahoma candidates are like peacocks, rare and exotic. They want your bright feathers at their table." And as Felix has said before, if you can look at it this way, a college wants their freshman class, you know, to have sitting around that table maybe a star ballerina, a kid that lived on a boat with his parents in the ocean for a year, and a kid that maybe was a all-star athlete. And, you know, you can just, you know, use your imagination, but to just have a variety and a really diverse class. Montgomery Educational Consulting in Alabama tells their students that colleges are looking not for well-rounded students, but for well-lopsided students who have potential for leadership in their chosen fields of interest and may even hold board positions or be president of their clubs. This organization insists that achieving excellence in a few areas is far superior to being a jack of all trades and master of none. So imagine that a student walks into an interview and says the following: I take dance classes, piano and guitar lessons. I'm in a bowling league. I played tennis last season. I'm on the school newspaper staff this year. I ski and I snowboard in the winter, and I swim on a swim team in the summer. Sometimes I volunteer at a local nursing home. I'm a Girl Scout. I participated in track and field as a freshman. I play the nose harp. And I excelled this year in my school's underwater basket weaving club. That student is risking looking like a person who has no real passion and does not ever stick with one thing and become excellent at it, and who doesn't really emerge ever as a leader in anything. College admissions reps would much rather hear a student say the following: I am the captain of my tennis team. I've won all 10 of my matches this year. I'm ranked number 8 in New England for my age group and would like to try out for the college tennis team here. I'm also the president of my high school band where I played flute for 4 years, and I recently placed 4th in my area in a flute competition. I founded an organization in my town which raises money to give scholarships to disadvantaged students to have funded music lessons, and so far I've gotten 10 students funded. I hope someday to teach music theory and flute lessons to disadvantaged, at-risk, and handicapped students. Now that's a kid coming through who has passion and has some related passions, but has really shown themselves to be a leader and to achieve excellence in certain things. Very much in contrast to the other girl with her nose harp and her underwater basket weaving. So I myself had an interesting college experience. Back in the day, I was actually an apprentice at Boston Ballet. And so when I was 15, 16, and 17, to be completely honest, even though I was a straight A student and I was in the National High Honor Society and whatnot, I wasn't thinking college because I wanted to be a Boston Ballet ballerina. And I had a great shot of that until a 4'10" soloist from France came and took over Boston Ballet's company and told me I was too short, even though I was 5'3½". I was actually looking down at her, but she wanted all tall dancers, so she said, you know, with her French accent, which I won't try to mimic, you know, you're a beautiful dancer, but you're too short for my company. Go dance somewhere else. And for me, that was such a shock. I was 17½, even though I had great grades and really good SAT scores. I really had no sense of what I was going to do about college instead, because I didn't want to leave my family, being the eldest of 5, and move far away to pursue dance. So I did the opposite of what we're telling you to do today. I applied to one college, Simmons College, which is an all-women's college in Boston, which some may know. I mean, Felix teased me about it when we first met because he's, you know, University of Michigan graduate. And everyone knows about the University of Michigan. Simmons College used to tease me a lot about it, but I did have a graduating class of 400. It is a very small school, but it's a very elite school, actually. Very difficult to get into Simmons College. And it was the only school I applied to. I applied in a whim overnight, and I really believe the reason that I got overwhelming response from the school and they were excited to have me there is because I was coming out of Boston Ballet, and I was an apprentice, and that's pretty unique. Pretty big accomplishment. And also, some of my teachers and counselors all wrote letters saying that they considered me to be the top teenager in my class. So I think those two things made me stand out, and I lucked out, and I got into the one college I applied to, and I was able to study communications and Spanish there. At the same time, though, I was the captain of my tennis team. I was a cheerleader. I played piano. You can just imagine with what I told you before, that I golfed, was on a bowling league, and ping pong, and you can't even imagine the other things I did. But in spite of the fact that I was a really well-rounded kid, I did excel in a couple of things. Our own daughter, Victoria, actually got accepted to College of Charleston in South Carolina. From what we've heard from other people, a very tough college to get into if you're from out of state. We know several students who have phenomenal profiles who did not get into College of Charleston. And Victoria, I believe, got accepted based on the fact that she wants to study children's theater, or theater for children. Her dream is someday to open up her own theater company for children and to especially cater to at-risk, disadvantaged, or handicapped children. So she was able to put in her profile that she has, for 4 years during high school, worked with Bedford Youth Performing Company's Circle of Giving, going into Manchester during the school year and especially in the summers, to work with kids coming from disadvantaged situations who otherwise would not really have an opportunity to learn how to sing or dance or act. And she put together little theatrical performances for them. And she also worked with Easter Seals, singing to and blessing and entertaining both adults and children in the Easter Seals program. So I think the fact that she was able to say she was the leading role in many musicals throughout her life, and that she had had actual hands-on experience with doing the very thing she wanted to go there to study, I think that positioned her to get accepted there. So I guess to wrap up what I'm saying, students need to stick out, not based on just a wide variety of things that really they can't really brag about. There's no great thing they did within that skill, but rather, you know, the fact that they can say, I've done maybe these 3 different things, but I've emerged as a leader in them. For my part, one thing I had also done is I organized a network of honor students who worked tutoring kids with learning disabilities from 9th grade to 12th grade. I had set that up, and that's probably truly another reason why Simmons College kind of looked at me and thought, oh, she's going to be a good leader in our school. And so I guess to wrap up, your students' ability to play the nose harp or excel in underwater basket weaving might be something that they might even not want to mention when they go on their interview. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, having been a professional educator my entire life and spent 25 years in the classroom, I have a lot to say about, you know, teacher recommendations. I've given a lot of recommendations. I have students ask me for recommendations, and let's see, I'll try to be as politically correct as possible, but the fact of the matter is, well, let me start out by mentioning what David had alluded to earlier about providing your recommenders, people who you want to ask for recommendations. Provide them with an activity resume. As much as I love my students, as much as I might have known them, I didn't know everything about them. And so, and sometimes, you know, when you're, as a teacher, you're going to write the resume and you're like, okay, what do I say? Let's see. But having that activity resume in front of me would have helped get me started. And it would have sure as heck shown me that this student is serious and that this student is motivated. You know, there's nothing worse for a teacher than, you know, semester exams are coming up. This is like the worst time. You got to grade, you know, 100 some odd semester exams and then do your semester grades and so forth. And then someone comes up and says, hey, can you write me a letter of recommendation? I would love to. You know, when am I going to find the time? And the fact of the matter is, if that student just says it to me, I'm not going to remember. I'm not going to write it. Not because I don't like the student, not because I don't want to, but because I'm going to forget. So if that student, in order to be proactive, if that student hands me something with their name, email, and everything to be able to contact them, to ask if they had any, if I have any questions about their activity resume, you know, then I'm going to be much more likely to be proactive on their behalf. Any student who, you know, one of the best things is when students come to me as a teacher and they give me a form that they were supposed to fill out, and it says, you know, the teacher's, the class, the teacher's name, and so forth, and they give it to me freaking blank. And they want me to put my class and my name in. I'm sorry, I'm acting angry. There's 25 years of this built up. And they ask me, they don't take the time to write in, this is for Spanish 3, my teacher's name is Mr. Alvarado, and they want me to write that in there for them. It might seem like a small thing, but think about that for a moment. I'm asking for you to help me with something, and I don't even take the time to write your name in it, that it's a recommendation from you. Or that, you know what I'm saying? You have to ask the kids to be proactive with everything from forms for school to especially the teacher recommendations. And I will tell you this, that teacher recommendations can be a very, very powerful part, as I think David alluded to earlier, of the overall picture. I mean, there are the grades, there are the SAT scores, but how do you differentiate? How you differentiate, one of the ways will be your teachers or your recommenders will help differentiate you. If I can explain why this student in my 25 years of teaching is different from all the other students I've taught, wow, that is a potentially very, very powerful a piece of information to put in your student's profile. It's good to meet with the recommender. It's good to you know, ask the teacher, can I see you after school for 5 minutes? And sit down with the teacher and say, you know, explain what you want to do. I mean, if you just go and kind of hand them a form that's a standard form that they got from the guidance counselor, could you fill this out for me? First of all, I'm probably not going to, I'm going to circular file it if they showed no effort whatsoever. But if they take the time to explain to me what they want to pursue, why it's so important to them, and how I was an impact in their life, and you were good as a teacher. It's not false flattery, don't get me wrong, but are they coming to me just because they can't get their science teacher to write something nice about them? Or why are they coming to me? I want to know, why are they coming to me to ask me for a recommendation? So it would be good for your student to mention why. And then to take that few minutes to say, okay, I have this form here that has all filled out. All you have to do is try to make it as easy for the teachers as possible because they have a very busy schedule. Which takes me to the next part. They are very busy, and even if they love your student, how much time they have to write the recommendation is critical. And also, are you sure you want that teacher to write you a recommendation? How good a writer is that teacher? And it might be your English teacher that might not be a good writer. I don't know. I mean, what do you know about the teacher? Find the teachers that you think are going to give you the best leverage. And by the way, be careful. Definitely be careful who you ask for recommendations. If you've ever had a conflict with a teacher, you don't ask them for a recommendation. Recommendations from your guidance counselors, not worth much, I'll be honest with you, because they never had to deal with you in the classroom, right? And there's a form that all guidance counselors fill out that's, oh, the student's wonderful, we love them, blah, blah, very generic, and boom. And they're done. You need to ask your teacher, you need to ask a teacher that you have a positive relationship with. And that's why, when I give, we have a website, straighta.com. Your students should get a free membership. I give word of the day, tip of the day. And one of the things I give for a weekly challenge is write a little note to a teacher that had a big impact on your life and thank that teacher for having a big impact on your life and explaining how they had that impact. And I don't say this as in, to get something back later. Be altruistic about it. Be sincere. Don't be false flattering. But I promise you, that teacher is going to write you a great recommendation when you come a couple months later and ask them for a recommendation. Yeah, don't give it to them on a Monday, the letter, and then on Friday ask for a recommendation. You know what I'm saying? Get this letter out months before you ask them for a letter. You see what I'm saying? Because even if you are sincere, the timing will look insincere. But
all the college apps ask for a letter of recommendation from their assigned guidance?
Well, the guidance, no, not necessarily. They ask for letters of recommendation, and it's up to the student to choose. And really, this is a big part of the process, to choose wisely who you ask for a recommendation for. Most will get a letter of recommendation from the guidance counselor anyway. And there's a particular form that guidance counselors follow. And we'll talk a little bit later about how busy teachers are, about how busy guidance counselors are, and how detailed they can possibly get. And again, having a student, giving recommendation from a teacher who had you in their classroom is much more powerful than a guidance counselor who just smiles politely at you in the hallways from time to time, does not have that as long-term intimate relationship. And by the way, if your student ever asks a teacher, thinking this is a good teacher to ask for a recommendation, and the teacher says, you do realize I'm going to be totally honest, right? You take that back away from them as fast as you can, and you go find another teacher. Because I hate to say it, but a lot of teachers, as nice as they may be, some teachers can be petty, and some can look for opportunity for retribution on students who have ticked them off in some way. And you might have a great kid, but if your great kid's a joker that caught a teacher on a bad day, and there's a little, again, choose wisely who you ask to recommend. And if you've had a teacher for more than 1 year, that would be good. And and always veteran teachers are better, because I get to say, when I write to my students, in my 25 years of teaching, I've never had a student that was more motivated. 25 years of teaching in 4 different states, that carries a lot more weight than, hi, this is my 3rd year of teaching, and I really like this student, and you know what I mean? So I don't want to get repetitive, but certainly starting early and starting out with maintaining positive relationships. Encourage your child to maintain positive relationships with certain teachers, and to be, way in advance of before they think about asking for a letter of recommendation, to affirm that relationship with the teacher and to let them know how important they were in your life. Okay? I guess we'll move on to fallacy number 8.
My mantra on the recommendations is leave absolutely nothing to chance. You want to ask you want to choose very carefully, as Felix said, but you ask the teacher in the spring of the junior year if they're willing to write a recommendation. You finish the activity resume, you make an appointment with the teacher, and you go in, because I hear parents say, oh, Mrs. Smith, the English teacher, she knows my daughter so well. I guarantee you that she doesn't know everything. She has 300 students. It's your assumption. It's a flawed assumption. So you go in with the activity resume, you make an appointment, you sit down and you really go through the things you're doing, the things you're passionate about, and the teacher may want to write you a fabulous recommendation, but they're just not current. And when they get that sheet and you kind of go through everything you're doing and you're passionate, they will write you a great recommendation, hopefully. I didn't finish my story about the girl.
So just a quick side note, time-wise, we probably
Okay. I didn't finish my story about the girl, the brilliant girl from the elite prep school. Well, I got to tell you what happened at the end. She went down to Harvard. She ended up applying to Harvard, and you know the rest of the story. She got rejected at Columbia, Penn, Yale, and no, she got into MIT. She wanted what other? Dartmouth. She got rejected at all. So if you don't think that how important is her brand, she's got 2,300 on her SATs, all A's at one of the most elite prep schools in the world, rejected at 4 Ivy League schools. So if you don't think the numbers just don't put you in the game. She got into Holy Cross, she got into Duke, she got into Georgetown, she got into all those other schools. Well, of course, the punchline is she got into Harvard because they're expanding the mechanical engineering department. She started in mechanical engineering, really wanted to study math, switched to math. She's now at Harvard. She got a lot of aid. The regional college rep isn't important, or is not all that important in the process. Everybody know what a regional college rep is? That's the person that goes around. She has maybe 3 states, and she goes around and calls on the schools, and she goes to college fairs, or he goes to college fairs, and their job really is to find the best students, get them interested in Georgetown, using Georgetown, and get them admitted. And the regional college rep is going to be the first person that reads your student's application, and he or she is going to put the notes on it. 90% of the people that apply to Georgetown don't know the regional college rep. This gives you a huge advantage. And so when you go down to Georgetown, down in Washington, D.C., and beautiful Georgetown neighborhood, and you're up there, they show you the dorms, and dorms are overlooking the Potomac, and you can see the monuments, beautiful, beautiful place. You go down, and there's the plaza down below, and they got the new McDonough School of Business. It's a very nice place. But you go on the intro thing, you go on the tour, you maybe have an interview, but if you can, you want to make an appointment with Ms. McManus. Oh, actually, she's UPenn. Well, let's say she switched to Georgetown. Whatever. She's over Georgetown now. You want to go in and you want to see her, and your son or daughter just, hi, I'm Susie Jones, and we just came down, went on the tour, loved Georgetown. These are my parents. Just connect with her, because it takes people 3 times before they know you. So you want to connect when you're there. It's just a 5-minute thing, just so that you connect. Then you say, oh, are you coming up to Bedford High School? Or are you coming up to the college fair in New Hampshire? So you find out when that is. Be sure that you get excused from class in advance. You're sitting right in the front row when Ms. McManus shows up at Bedford High School. Hi, I'm Susie Jones. I met you down at Georgetown. Oh yeah, Susie, how are you? I'm still really interested in Georgetown. Yada, 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 Very, very important. And beyond that, you then go to the college fair, and the college fair is sort of like serial dating. You're going down and you're talking to different people, and you don't want to take too much of her time, Ms. McManus's time, because she's going to be looking to connect with as many kids as she can. But You want to, again, I'll be amazed if Ms. McManus, the third time she sees you, doesn't say, "Hi, Susie, so good to see you again. How are you? How's school going?" Because your student probably is going to think, "Oh my God, Georgetown, oh boy, that's, ooh." They hire these people because they're good at connecting with kids. Why would, if they're not good, if they're not personable in connecting with kids, why would you send them out on the road to find students? So they're very approachable. One tip, when you go to the college fair, be sure to bring your labels with your name, address, telephone number, and email address. Because they're going to ask you to sign in. That's going to correlate with your interest score, because a lot of the schools keep every piece of communication, every time you touch them, it goes in your file, and there's an interest score that's developed. Now, there's another reason to do the labels. They're fast, so you can just put it right on the book, move on. The other one is I knew a girl, her name was Ariel. I don't remember her last name, but anyway, Ariel had very bad penmanship, very bad. What she wrote in the book looked like ASSH. She started getting mailings from the school, ASSH, and her last name. First of all, I don't know what they thought she was, what she was putting them on, or what the. Anyway, and worst case, it's not matching up with her interests. I mean, it's not matching up with the name she used when she went to the school, and for obvious reasons, this is not good. So, you definitely want to do that. Now we've got the regional college rep. I want to fast forward to the second week in March. Now we're down at Georgetown. We're in a big conference room. This is the committee. This is the committee. So they're all sitting around, and all fall the regional rep has been traveling. The last 6 weeks, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, all they've been doing is reading applications. They all have a laptop in front of them, there's paper everywhere, there's coffee cups, they're in sweatpants, they're exhausted. They're really exhausted to get through this. So they're sitting there, and what they're doing is going through the candidates. Now, all the geniuses are already in the school. So if your child is, 3'9", and beautiful brand, leading everything, you don't have to worry about them because they're already in the school. But the rest of us are trying to claw our way up a, stone wall, So, we need all the help we can get. So, and you have to realize too that 4 years of secondary school, all that hard work, get all the grades. Felix drilled you, and you got the SATs, and this is all going to boil down to about 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And at that point, they're like tired, and they're like this, but they've got this stamp that says reject. As soon as things get boring, down it comes. And at that point, they're rejecting 4 out of 5, at an elite school like that. So they're really just looking for a reason to reject your student, really. I mean, they're not looking for a reason to put him in. So, Ms. McManus gets up, and they're tired, and she gets up, and she goes through Bedford High School, suburban high school, new high school up in Bedford, New Hampshire, baccalaureate program, just through the specs. And we've got two applicants. So she gets up, and what's your first name again? David. David. I don't know anything about you, what year, but I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying. She gets up to talk about David. So she gets up, and she said, "Oh, David, he's a great student, and 3.7 average, and he got 1,900 and something on his SATs. He played soccer, and he's on the National Honor Society, and everybody's getting tired. And you're out. What's your name?" Emma. Gets up to talk about Emma. Ooh, all of a sudden she's kind of perky, Ooh, Emma. I met Emma down at Georgetown. She was just such an articulate, energetic girl. She asked me some real nice questions, sent me emails, follow-up. I saw her up at Bedford High School. Wow, now her grades are only 3.5 and 1,800 maybe on the SATs. But, Emma is a brilliant artist. She redesigned the whole Bedford yearbook. She was an assistant teacher at the Currier Gallery of Art. She went to the New Hampshire Institute of Art, took 3 college-level courses, got all A's in them. She won statewide art contests. She sent me a DVD of her 25 best artwork. I took the extra time to take it to the Visual Studies office. They gave it a 5 out of 5. Emma's going to Georgetown. What they do is they say, look, visual studies. Do we need anybody, or, do we need an artist? Didn't have the grades that David had, but she had something that they were looking for. So you have to remember that the question is not, can the student do the work? The question is, what is the student going to contribute to the university? Everybody thinks, oh, get the grades, we'll be all set. It doesn't work that way. It's like the playwright Oscar Wilde said, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. Very true. You want them talking about it, you've got to give them something to talk about. I have a quote from an Ivy League admission office. The majority of the students that apply can do the work. In many cases, it comes down to likability and impact. Would you want to hang out with this person for 4 years? If you come off as just another math genius with no personality or well-rounded, but not a person with a clear focus, you have no chance. So what are they really saying? They're saying, what's your brand? What's interesting about you that fits something? What can you contribute to the university? Colleges really don't care if you're interested in them. Oh, they really do care if you're interested in them. Very much so. They spend a lot of money to get you interested, to get you to apply, and so forth. Lots of money. And there's a thing called a yield, and the yield is the percentage of kids or students that they accept. What percentage will actually attend? This is a very important statistic. Most colleges are around 25%, although the very elite schools are 60, 70%. So they're very concerned with that, and it's back to that interest score. Which student will they accept? If they look at Emma and they say, gee, she was down at Georgetown, she really loves Georgetown, I saw her here, I saw her there, and she has this huge interest score, or David, not picking on you again, but where, gee, he sent in an application, but we don't know if he cares about Georgetown or not. Right. So they really do care whether or not you're interested in them, because as soon as they accept you, it feels like they have all the power. But as soon as they accept you, all the power shifts to you. And they're trying to elevate that yield. Oh, let's talk money. Let's talk money. Financial planning early in the process isn't important. You can address that after you find out where your student gets in. It's really critical to review the financial arena before you start looking at a lot of schools. Maybe you've already looked at schools, but you need to go to this website and determine approximately what your EFC is, your effective family contribution. That is what, under the FAFSA formula, the government thinks your family should contribute to your students' education. At least if you have that, you have an idea where you stand. And because, as I said before, there's merit aid, and merit aid is just in response to a brilliant or secondary school career or high SAT scores. But that can be anywhere from $4,000 to $20,000 per year. Really, merit aid is kind of a discount or an inducement to try to get your student to attend the school. And then there's financial aid, which is obviously based on your income, your assets, and so forth. And there are a couple of things that you fill out. First, there's the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And that determines federal grants and aids. Now, under the FAFSA, your home value and your retirement counts are out of the formula. Very, very important. People always ask me, well, okay, what about assets? Well, under assets, the FAFSA expects your student to contribute on an annual basis 20% of their assets. For most people, that's a small thing. If your son or daughter has $1,000 in the bank, they want them to put in $200. But they expect under the FAFSA guideline that you are going to contribute 5.64% of your assets, excluding the value of your home and your retirement account. So I always tell people, if it comes to a choice between putting money in a bank-related college fund or your retirement account, go for the, don't not contribute to your retirement account and contribute to the college fund, because the worst case scenario, you could pull money out of your 401k to pay for college if you had to. Although obviously the 529 plans are very tax advantaged because all of the dividends and so forth are not taxed until you actually use them to pay for college. And there are some things too about, I really love the fact that early, when your kids are young, it's a rather aggressive investment portfolio, and by the time it gets close to using the money, it's transitioned into bonds, and because you can do this age-related millennium, which I think really works well. I really recommend also, let me go through the second form, is the CSS Profile. That all the private colleges, for the most part, also ask you for that. Now, the FAFSA comes off your tax return on the year prior to your student starting school. It's just data from your tax return. The CSS Profile is a 3-year document. It's the junior year of secondary school, senior year, and a projection of the first year of college. So there's some really important things. When I filled out the CSS Profile, I took my tax bill in Bedford and I put in that amount. It is ethically acceptable to put in what is known as a short sale amount, which is 80% of that value. That can save you a lot of money. That can save you a lot of money. Not bad for a free seminar. Under the CSS Profile, the value of your home is included, but your retirement accounts are still outside of the formula. So I recommend to people, surprisingly enough, in the CSS Profile, the most important year is the junior year. So you really want to avoid selling assets that generate capital gains in your student's junior year. You want to avoid converting IRAs to Roth IRAs, which is partially a taxable event. You want to defer bonuses, prepay real estate taxes, whatever you can to reduce your income in the junior year. If, for instance, you own a business and you're thinking of remodeling your facility, do it in the junior year. If it would result in you taking less money out of the business, do it in the junior year. If you're thinking of taking an expensive family vacation or buying a car or something, do it in the junior year because it'll have the biggest impact on the CSS profile. Private colleges are too expensive. Boy, is that ever true. Must be a wonderful business model to say that, you know, well, we turn away 3/4 of the customers. We don't want them. I mean, that's a real incentive for efficiency, isn't it? But it's interesting, the public universities, in the last couple of years, the costs have gone up 8% because the states aren't providing them with the kind of support that they used to. And last year, the private colleges went up 4%, which you could argue in a recessionary world, 4% is, you know, still a lot. But the interesting thing is that the way it could work for you is if your EFC is $20,000 a year, and Emma's trying to decide whether she'll go to UNH or she'll go to Georgetown. Now, you're not going to get much aid at UNH, so I'm told UNH costs like $27,000 a year now. You might have to pay $27,000. Whereas Georgetown, and this is never set in stone, they're one of these schools that takes the full differential between the cost, which I think is like $55,000, and your EFC. Not guaranteed. It might be a combination of merit, financial aid, work study, and so forth, but it is possible that it could cost you $27,000 to go to UNH and that it could cost you $20,000 to go to Georgetown. I think UNH is a terrific school, and we're really lucky to have a school of that quality in New Hampshire. It's not a certainty that UNH is going to be less expensive. Financial aid offers from the schools are final. Everything is negotiable. It's really not true. What I recommend to people is that if you're going to discuss financial aid, the best thing to do is, if you applied to USC, you're probably not going to fly to Southern California to talk about your aid award, but if you can go to the school and sit down with the financial aid group, and also I forgot to mention, I really recommend that you file the FAFSA and the CSS profile, because I see people getting money with pretty strong assets and income. So I would file it. The other reason to file it is who knows what might happen. God forbid your spouse loses their job. your financial situation changes, someone in your family has cancer or something that requires a lot of your assets to address. So it's really a good idea to have a relationship with the financial aid office. And as I said, I'm surprised, you know, if you can get your child into an Ivy League school and your income is less than $75,000 a year and you don't have a lot of assets, which probably doesn't apply to a lot of people in Bedford, but you go for free. People with incomes over $200,000 at these elite schools get aid. I mean, I think, you know, at Harvard, they think you're on food stamps if you only make $200,000 a year. I don't know what they're, you know, what they're thinking. But anyway, I'm seeing this. So, but it's just important to have a relationship because you never know what might happen in the future. Oh, the other thing, if you're going to negotiate that amount, let's say Emma is thinking about Georgetown, she's thinking about Boston College also. Let's say there's an $8,000 differential in the award. What you want to do is you want to go down, if you can, or Georgetown, and you want to hand them the BC offer and say there's an $8,000 difference. You know, Emma really wants to go to Georgetown, but it's $8,000, hard for us to come up with. And you can't go down there and say, well, Emma, you know, she really wants to go to Penn. She's on the waiting list. I think they said they're going to take her, and you know, you got to give to get. You got to, I mean, the yield. You got to be. We're going to Georgetown. We can fix this. You know, you got to be ready to. Because what would you do if you was a financial aid person? She really wants to go to Penn. What am I, you know, giving up scarce resources? What am I going to get? So you want to be prepared to, you know, to commit, which really gets their attention. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I love that.
There we go.
So we titled this, What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas. I'm sure, you know, back in the day, many of us here can remember playing in our backyards, and, you know, a lot of moms were home in those days full time. And, you know, if someone did something wrong at a neighbor's house before their kid got home, their mom would already know what they did because, you know, the neighbor would have called. And, you know, today, that communication is lightning faster than it even was then. My daughter Victoria last summer was at a park in Bedford at night with her friends, just kind of hanging. I mean, how much can you do in Bedford, right? So there's just the innocent kids just, you know, swinging at the park. And they met two girls from Houston or Austin, Texas, who had moved to Bedford. You may know them. And, you know, they just kind of got to know them that night, and they hadn't met anyone in Bedford yet, so that was a great connection for them. And so my daughter came home, and I said, hey, who were those girls I didn't recognize that you were with at the park tonight? And she just looked at me like, what? How could you possibly, were you driving by? Were you watching me? You know, and I was like, no, actually, I saw it on one of your friends' Facebook a while back because that's how quickly nowadays, as you know, because of social networks like Facebook, information just travels lightning speed. So I had seen the pictures of her at the park with these new girls before she had a chance to get home and tell me she met two new girls. So having said that, you know, many students ask, can what I post on Facebook get me rejected from college? It's a very good question. A man named Steve Laughlin, founder and CEO of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars, says, when it comes to Facebook, be smart about your privacy settings, and you can control exactly who has access. Nevertheless, be aware of how your Facebook posts may be interpreted by someone who does not know you. This actually happened to me recently. I often allow former students of mine to friend me on Facebook. And there are a couple of students that I taught in a school for at-risk kids a few years ago that I was, you know, friends with on Facebook. And I saw some of their statuses that were on my wall, and they were really inappropriate. And it occurred to me that, you know, if someone who doesn't know me extremely well sees that there's this boy, how do they know it's not a man? How do they, you know, how do they know how I'm related to this person, has this terrible status? They're going to judge me and wonder about what kind of person I am that I'm associating with this person. So I had to unfriend those students, unfortunately. I still keep in touch with them. But, you know, the point is that Facebook has kind of taken over the world, and it does have an impact. Michelle Hernandez, from the president and founder of Hernandez College Consulting, says, do admissions officers look up every student's page? Of course not. How could they with 30,000 applicants? However, You can't control the behavior of others. What if a jealous friend were to send a Facebook link to an admissions office in an attempt to sabotage your application? There was a major scandal not long ago at Choate Preparatory School in Connecticut where several students were expelled due to nasty Facebook cyberbullying. The prep school said it didn't want its reputation marred by such students' social networking activities. Also, a student at Malloy College in New York lost her softball scholarship after she posted some rap lyrics on her Facebook profile. So, you know, you might not think people are watching, but they are. Remember the principle, as Felix always tells our children, of 6 degrees of separation. It's amazing how the grapevine works. Though you can't imagine that a particular college would ever hear about or know about something your student said or did, technology today makes it actually possible. Regarding roommate assignments, once you are accepted to college, obviously there's the chance that your Facebook could affect you even along those lines. Amy Freenwald Foley, Director of Undergraduate Admission at the University of Delaware, said, once housing assignments are released, many go online to check out students who will leave an indelible mark on their child. If parents don't like what they see, they often call us and demand that their child gets a different roommate. Our own son, Jonathan, our first child to go off to college, I remember kind of asking him, like, please, can I look at the Facebook page of your roommate that you're going to be with this year? And he was, you know, really cooperative, and he let me kind of look at Taylor's Facebook, and honestly, I could tell immediately just from what I saw that this was a boy that spoke well of his family, was a noble-hearted young man that shared a lot of the same interest as my son, and just was a good kid that was having good, clean fun, and so that, you know, put my heart at ease. But I have to admit that if I had found the opposite to be true, I may have been one of those moms that would have called and said, kind of concerned about my son's roommate. Having said all that, Facebook could also have a positive impact on your student. But the suggestion that Catherine Cohen, founder and CEO of IvyWise and ApplyWise.com, she says, use the grandparent test. If you wouldn't want your grandparents to see it, don't put it online. This applies to blogs, Facebook profile and photos, Twitter tweets, Pinterest, and live journal posts. You can use the internet to express yourself and show admissions committees your passion. If you're a photographer or an artist, post pictures. Musicians, start a MySpace page devoted to your music. I know we have very little time, but one other thing that I came across that I thought was interesting is that some admissions officers actually check kids' Facebooks to check to see if facts they've said about themselves are true. So, like, for example, in my daughter's case, she raved about being, you know, the star in all these shows and having done all this volunteer work with kids. But if they had gone to her Facebook and gone to all her pictures, they would have seen all of her theatrical pictures, and they would have seen her surrounded by little kids, and so it just would have corroborated her story. So I guess Facebook and other social networking can be a positive or a negative. It's a great tool, obviously, but I guess the bottom line to tell your students is you truly are who you are when you don't think anyone else is looking. So to be noble-hearted, upstanding citizens who only post good things and have, you know, show forth the best of themselves on their social networking so that if a college ever did somehow get a peek at what they are, that they would be happy with what they saw.
All right, junior year is your most important year. That's when college application process truly begins. That's kind of what, you know, I've heard other teachers say this. I've heard other teachers say, oh, it's your junior year is your most important year. You better buckle down now. And everyone kind of believes that. Well, what's the fact of the matter is it's only 1/3 of your GPA. Okay, whatever you do in your junior year, that's great. I mean, it's not a bad thing to show improvement. But it's still, you know, you can't in 1 year overcome 2 years of messing around. So I know most of you are at the junior year here, some of you in the sophomore year. Every year is important. I mean, every year is important. I mean, we talk about, for example, you know, seeing a sustained pattern. David has mentioned that numerous times in terms of the activities, you know, not to seem willy-nilly, doing a little this, a little that, a little something else, but showing sustained a character is what that reveals, isn't it? You know, to seeing that the student is doing well and having similar activity, or pursuing certain activities over time. And take, for example, West Point. I've helped students in 7th grade prepare for SAT tests because West Point recommends that 7th graders take the SAT and take it every year through to their senior year, till fall of their senior year. That's West Point's recommendation. A little militaristic, I understand. I don't necessarily recommend that much. In fact, the straight A method would be take it in your sophomore year. Take my full course or A course, be prepared to take the SAT in your sophomore year. And then when you take it in the PSATs in your junior year, I see everyone do it backwards. I see everyone does, PSAT in the sophomore year. Guess what? Your PSAT scores in your sophomore year do not count towards potential National Merit Scholarship standing. We know that for a fact because my own son, Daniel, who's a junior, is a National Merit Scholar now. And if he had gotten his scores in the PSAT in the sophomore year, it would not have counted. Ironically and strangely enough, it's the junior year that the PSAT matters. So what he had done is, as a sophomore, I trained him along with some other students in a very small, intimate class, only 4 students. And he prepared, and he did really well as a sophomore. He got a 2,060 on the SAT. And when he took the PSATs, because he did that in the spring, and in the fall when he took the PSATs, he said, that was easy. The PSAT is the practice SAT, right? It's a SAT light, if you will. And so as a junior, he scored 99th percentile on the PSATs. And he's going to take the SATs again this spring, a second time, because he wants to shoot for over 2,100. He's got a little competition thing going with his brother who beat him by like 20 points or something too, so that's a part of the picture. But, all right, it's just really important, the way the paradigm works, it's like everybody goes to sleep until junior year. It's like, oh, I got to get ready. Well, you've been getting ready, you've already got 2/3 of what you're going to show colleges already done. So it's kind of hard to overcome all of that in 1 year. Now, that being said, you can overcome certain deficiencies in your profile by showing a very strong junior year. You can't, but you would rather just show a pattern of consistency than having to explain to the admission counselors, yeah, I was a screw up as a freshman and a sophomore, I didn't really care. But now as a junior, you can see I did really well. And I'm getting better. They might buy it, they might not. Better to show the pattern of consistency. And you can't wait until the year before you apply to start building that resume, or planning financially for that matter as well. I mean, nowadays we have to start planning like when they're born. Get them a 529 early, and in fact, there's some states that have plans that if you invest into their plan, you can. They promise that you'll go to a 4-year university if you contribute a certain amount. New Hampshire does not have one of those plans that I'm aware of, but starting earlier is obviously always better. And furthermore, you can't necessarily get to visit all the colleges that you're necessarily interested in 1 year. I mean, you'd like to be able to let your student, as a freshman, visit a college campus. As a sophomore, visit a couple of college campuses. Plus, by having your kids visit a college campus as a freshman or as a sophomore, it really helps them focus. It really gives them the reality of that's what I'm working towards, especially in this market, in this economy, in this marketplace. A high school diploma is like, what's that? It's not worth the paper it's printed on. I hate to say it. And now bachelor's degree is, I can remember when my dad was an immigrant from Mexico. He came with a 3rd grade education. That was his reality. He grew up during the Depression in Mexico. So he had it very, very tough. And my mom had completed high school. And I can remember numerous times when I was young and there was an issue of dealing with something that required some effort, brain power-wise. And my dad would go, oh, I don't know, you're the one who has high school, to my mom. You're the one with high school. And I can remember thinking at the time, even back when, unfortunately, 25 or so years ago when I graduated, it was already changing to the bachelor's degree becoming the new high school diploma, the new standard. And so anyway, getting them started and getting them focused as a freshman, as a sophomore, understanding what they're shooting for, that the high school is a false society. It's not the real world. It's a stepping stone onto something bigger, to what you want to pursue. And, you know, starting them younger is obviously better. Okay. And finally, high school counselors and officials will help guide my students through the entire process. It's their job. It's not their job. I'll just say that right up front. It's not their job. Everyone thinks it's their job. You know what their job is to remind their 300 students that they work with that what the deadlines are. It's not their job to get them through this entire process that David has kind of outlined here today. They have so many things that they have to deal with, and having been on the inside for 25 years, I can tell you the guidance counselors are really usually putting out fires every day. And it's the kids that are, you know, causing the difficulties, that are consuming their time and focus and energy, and maybe a few kids who have some high accolades they might be able to do something with. But then if you look at the people in the middle, they end up suffering. They end up not getting the attention that they should. Guidance counselors, most of them, are not trained in many of the aspects of college admissions. They're trained in the daily goings-on of high school. And David, I know, could share with you that there are private schools that have dedicated counselors for nothing but college admissions. And, you know, the public education, public schools don't have that advantage. So, you know, you're on your own in the process unless you have someone like David helping you through the process. And then finally, again, I think you understand the point that the guidance counselors are bogged down with many, many responsibilities, and they don't have the training in finances. David, I'm sure, could direct you to someone who's specifically a financial advisor, or you may have your own financial advisors. But so many, like he said, it's a complicated process. There's so many aspects of this product that you're purchasing, and the guidance counselors, you know, they're just wondering, you know, who put the stickies all over the wall in the bathroom. And that's what I got to deal with today, right? And they're blaming you, and you didn't have anything to do with it. I'm just kidding. So, okay, so again, I want to apologize for this, but I don't really apologize, because having been a classroom teacher for 25 years, I know what would have been happening if we handed these out earlier. I know what would be happening because I would have been doing the same thing. I would have been leafing ahead and not paying attention. But we do have all of the slides that you just saw. We do have them for you that Judy is now handing out. And we are going to attempt to package this and put this on the web as well, so that if you want to share this information with someone, that they can go to straighta.com or straight. We're going to work that out. We have all our contact information in there as well. In fact, there it is. The last page, all of our information. So, again, thank you. I apologize. You know, we went over a little bit. I think the reason is because David, Judy, and I understand that this process is not a quick and easy one. You know, we tried to keep it to an hour, but we get a little bit verbose, I know. But there's so many nuances to the whole process that we tried to share, probably more than we should have, could have in this amount of time. But if you have additional issues that you'd like to focus on for your particular family situation, you know, David's available, we're available, and you have our contact information. Do you want to take any quick questions?
5 minutes and a wrap. Real quick, I know we're running late. I just had a short quote on the guidance counselor thing, and I don't do at Bedford High School, and I know they do the best job they can, but this is from a former private college admission coach, which does what I do. He's now at Princeton University, and he says, "The biggest surprise for me was the difference in how much contact private school guidance counselors had with the admissions office versus public school guidance counselors. I went back to my public high school, and the guidance counselor asked, would it be okay for me to contact the school on behalf of my students? Couldn't believe he was asking me that question. That's just commonplace among the private school counselors. We know them by name and face, and they know our admissions officers. That's a big advantage for those students. Those counselors are pushing for those students, and we value those relationships. Why? Because every year they bring them all these great students. So, I mean, the elite private school thing, they have maybe 25 or 30 students. They don't do any guidance counselor work. All they do is live and breathe, because those schools survive based on their matriculations. That's what they sell you for $200,000.